The day my sister tried to invoice me for a birthday cake that her own kids devoured wasn't just about money. It was the moment I realized I'd been living a lie, allowing a toxic pattern to control my life for far too long. For years, Rachel, at 33, genuinely believed my sister Emily was just quirky. You know, the type who'd bring her own artisanal hot sauce to a five-star restaurant, demand handmade gifts for every single occasion, and micromanage a simple potluck like she was orchestrating a Michelin-starred event. We definitely had our moments, of course, but nothing that ever truly crossed a line. Nothing that made me question our bond. Until my son Josh's 8th birthday. It was just a small backyard bash, simple balloons, paper plates, a few water games, and a super cool Pokemon piñata. Honestly, nothing over the top. I wasn't aiming for Super Mom of the Year. I just wanted Josh to have a blast with his friends and cousins, you know? Pure, simple joy. The night before the party, Emily had texted me, out of the blue, saying she'd handle the cake. I never asked her to. In fact, I'd already planned on grabbing a classic sheet cake from our local bakery. But she insisted. Made it just for him. Her little note read, tucked neatly under the plastic wrap of this surprisingly elaborate, three-tiered masterpiece with tiny fondant Pikachu ears poking out the top. At the time, I thought it was incredibly sweet. A genuine gesture. I even shot her a thank you text, loaded with exclamation marks, telling her how absolutely thrilled Josh would be. Emily herself didn't show up for the party, claiming some last-minute spa day she absolutely couldn't cancel. But she did promise to drop her kids off early to represent her. Her twin boys, Mason and Tyler, are 10, a couple of years older than Josh, definitely louder than Josh, and about 1,000 times faster when there's sugar involved. They arrived a good 30 minutes ahead of time, already sticky from spilled Gatorade and vibrating with that specific, wild, pre-party energy. I was literally still setting up chairs and trying to string up decorations when they zoomed past me into the backyard, acting like they owned the place. I swear, I barely had time to take a breath before one of the other moms called out, with a little nervous laugh, Rachel, the boys are eating the cake. And it wasn't just a little finger dip of frosting. Oh no, they'd ripped off the plastic wrap and were absolutely devouring it, like it was an all-you-can-eat buffet that was about to close forever. 2 entire layers of that elaborate cake were demolished. Crumbs, frosting, and fondant Pikachu ears were everywhere. And poor Josh, he hadn't even seen it yet. I'll be honest, I just froze. My first instinct wasn't to scream or get mad. I just stood there, utterly stunned, watching Mason nonchalantly scoop his finger right through Pikachu's fondant face. It was surreal. I definitely didn't want to make a huge scene with all the other parents already arriving. And part of me, the part that always tried to be understanding, thought, well, they're just kids. Maybe Emily won't even care. So I took a quick photo, snapped it off to her with a casual text. Hope you don't mind. Your boys are loving the cake. Faced with tears of joy, that was it. Literally all I said. No sarcasm, no judgment, nothing negative. I was genuinely trying to keep it light, even though, deep down, I was really disappointed. My phone rang less than 30 seconds later. Before I could even say hello, Emily barked, "What the actual heck, Rachel?" She was furious. That cake wasn't for them. I spent 2 whole days working on that. I told you it was for Josh. I just blinked, completely thrown. Emily, your boys got here early. They ran straight for it. I didn't even see them until it was too late. Her voice was sharp, cutting. You're the adult. You're supposed to be watching them. I felt a flush of heat creeping up my neck. I was setting up. They practically blew past me while I was still tying balloons. It's not like I handed them forks and said, "Go nuts." She hissed. They ruined everything. That cake cost me $200 in ingredients and time. That wasn't just some store-bought cake, Rachel. That was art. Okay, well, I'm sorry, I said, genuinely trying to de-escalate, trying to be the bigger person. We still have the bakery cake. It's not a huge deal. Josh didn't even see it. He's having fun. She didn't respond. She just hung up. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, half expecting her to call back, to apologize, to say she overreacted. But instead, about 2 hours later, I got a Venmo notification, a request from Emily for $200 cake reimbursement. At first, I actually laughed. I thought it had to be a joke. I showed it to my husband, Matt, and said, "She can't be serious, right?" But she was. A follow-up message popped up. "I expect this paid by tomorrow. I don't do free labor for people who let my kids destroy my work." Now, I've been irritated before, absolutely fuming even, but that text, that flipped a switch inside me. Because here's the thing, this wasn't some isolated incident. Emily had a history of this. There was the Christmas she'd gifted everyone personalized ornaments, except mine just said Rachel. When I asked why, she'd shrugged, "Well, I had to rush. You're kind of hard to shop for." Or the time she offered to help with my baby shower, then completely hijacked the entire event, making it all about her future niece or nephew, and delivering a painfully long speech about how she was essentially the reason I was even going to be a mom. I'd always brushed it off, told myself she just loved being the center of attention, that wasn't worth the family drama to call her out. But now, she was actively demanding money for a cake that her own children had devoured. That was it. I was done tiptoeing around her. I didn't respond to her Venmo request right away. I just let it sit there, festering. The next morning, another text from her. "Hey, haven't seen the payment come through. Just reminding you before I escalate this to mom and dad." Oh, of course. And like clockwork, that very afternoon, my phone rang with a call from our mother. "Rachel," she said, in that deeply disappointed tone she'd perfected sometime around 1998, "what happened with Emily's cake?" I sighed a long, weary sigh. "Mom, her kid showed up early and ate it. That's what happened." "Well, she says you were careless, that you didn't appreciate her gift. You know how much time she put into that." I snapped back, my patience wearing thin. She didn't even stay for the party. And now she wants me to pay her because her own children ruined her surprise? That's not normal, Mom. "You were the host," my mom said slowly, almost deliberately. "Maybe you should have been more aware. I think $200 is fair." I nearly dropped the phone. "Are you serious?" "Look, I'm not taking sides," she insisted, though her tone clearly suggested otherwise. "But it's your nephew's birthday. Maybe just pay her and move on." I hung up the phone, and for the very first time in my life, I didn't feel an ounce of guilt about it. Not even a little, because something profound clicked into place. This wasn't about a cake. This was about control. This was about Emily constantly manipulating situations, twisting narratives so she always emerged as the victim or the hero, whatever served her best in the moment. I wasn't going to play her game anymore. Instead, I went digging. You see, Emily also has this little home baking business on the side. She always played it off as mostly for fun, selling a few cakes a month through Instagram, constantly bragging about how she didn't need the money. It was just for the art. But I distinctly remembered her mentioning at a family dinner once that she didn't bother with a food handler's license because, technically, she only sold by word of mouth, not publicly. Except, I knew for a fact she'd taken money via Venmo for a birthday cake she'd made for my coworker's daughter just last month. And I had the screenshots. I didn't plan on using them. Not at first, anyway. But then Emily escalated again. She posted a scathing, vague rant on Facebook, subtly tagging me. It was all about how some people just don't appreciate handmade gifts, and how when you pour your love into something and it gets treated like trash, it's hard not to feel undervalued. She didn't directly mention the $200, but she didn't have to. Suddenly, half our extended family was texting me, shocked, saying they couldn't believe I treated her like that. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about a cake anymore. This was about setting a boundary, a real one, and making sure that this time it actually stuck. I didn't respond to her Facebook post. Not publicly, anyway. I didn't even leave a single comment. I just watched, seething, as the likes and sympathetic comments rolled in from people who had absolutely no idea what had actually transpired. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly chiming in with things like, "You're such a good sister, Emily. Don't let people walk all over you." I felt that familiar heat building in my chest, that slow, tight, suffocating feeling that always crept in when I felt utterly cornered but couldn't scream. Matt, my husband, asked if I wanted him to step in to say something. I told him no. I needed to handle this myself. I wasn't going to play her game. I was going to flip the entire board. So I waited. 2 days. Then 3. I let that Venmo request expire. I let the whispers in the family chat group grow louder. My mom even sent me a passive-aggressive message. "Still no apology? You used to have more grace than this." That one stung. Not because I cared about her opinion of me, but because it made me realize just how long they'd all been enabling Emily. Grace, to them, meant silence. It meant compliance. And I was done with both. So I made one specific call. To my coworker, Tanya, the one who'd bought that adorable unicorn cake from Emily last month and paid via Venmo. I asked her if she'd be willing to forward me the Venmo receipt Emily sent, along with their conversation about pricing. Tanya was more than happy to oblige, especially once I briefly explained the situation. Then I went online, straight to the official health department website. I pulled up the cottage food law page, took detailed screenshots, and highlighted the specific section that clearly stated food sales, even from home, absolutely require a license, and how failure to comply could result in hefty penalties. Emily's little side hustle wasn't just a hobby, it was illegal. She had even told me as much, bragging that she was too small to be noticed. I still wasn't planning to report her. That's just not me. But I was damn sure going to make sure she knew that I could. That if she wanted to keep poking the bear, she was playing a very dangerous game. So, I crafted a message to her. Simple, calm, precise. "Hi, Emily. I'm sorry your boys got into the cake. I didn't invite them early, and I didn't think I had to guard it like the crown jewels. I won't be paying your Venmo request. If anything, you should be thanking me for not sending you a bill for cleaning up the frosting they smeared all over my patio furniture. Also, just a friendly reminder, running a baking business from home without the proper food permits is illegal in our state. Someone might want to check that out before demanding $200 over text." I attached all the evidence, the screenshots of the law, Tanya's Venmo payment, and even Emily's own Instagram post advertising custom cakes starting at $150. I didn't threaten her. I didn't need to. She left me on read for an entire week. No comments. No more Venmo requests. No passive-aggressive Facebook quotes about ungrateful people or not supporting small businesses. Just deafening silence. Until Sunday afternoon. My mom showed up at my door with a plastic container of grocery store cookies and this incredibly sheepish smile. "I brought treats for Josh," she said, as if that would magically erase everything. I crossed my arms. "Did Emily send you?" There was a beat of silence. Her eyes darted. Then she mumbled, "Okay, yes, she's upset." She said, "You're trying to ruin her business." She tried to invoice me for something her kids ruined. I cut in, my voice tight. Then she dragged my name through the mud when I wouldn't pay, all while illegally running a business she never even registered. Mom sighed. "She's embarrassed, Rachel." Good, I shot back. "Maybe she should be." Mom shifted uncomfortably on my porch. "She says she's scared now that you might report her." I said nothing, just stared at her. "Will you?" Mom finally asked. That question hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. And in that moment, I realized it wasn't fear in her voice. It was expectation. Not, "Will you actually do this?" but, "Please don't," because family is supposed to let each other get away with stuff. And that's when I knew exactly what I had to do. I didn't answer my mom. I just turned and walked back inside, leaving her standing there on the porch, clutching those discount cookies like they were some kind of peace treaty. Instead of engaging with Emily, I went straight to Facebook. I posted something. not to be petty, not to stir up drama, but to finally, unequivocally, set the record straight. Hi, everyone. I've stayed quiet for a few days because I didn't want to turn my son's birthday into a circus. But since a lot of people seem to have heard Emily's side of the cake incident, here's mine. Then I laid it all out. Emily made a cake and dropped it off. Her kids arrived early and ate most of it before the party even started. She then demanded $200 from me for the cake and posted vague accusations online when I declined. I was blamed for not supervising her children, then guilt-tripped for not paying. Just to clarify, I did not ask her to make a cake. I'd already ordered one from the bakery. Her gesture, while appreciated, was unsolicited, and the mess her kids left was extensive. I have no interest in continuing this drama, but I won't be villainized for drawing a boundary. I love my family, but love doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. I didn't name call. I didn't even mention the illegal business. But people absolutely read between the lines. The comments started rolling in almost immediately. Thanks for clearing that up, Rachel. Honestly, good for you. Saw the post she made, was wondering what really happened. She charged you for real. This time, no one clapped back at me. No one took her side. In fact, over the next few days, I quietly noticed a few people unfollowing her bakery account. I didn't report her to the authorities. I didn't need to. Her own actions were doing a far better job of damaging her reputation than I ever could. But Emily? Emily wasn't going to go down without one last dramatic swing. 3 days later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. Not from a lawyer, not from a court. It was from Emily herself. A handwritten, double-sided screed in pink ink, absolutely overflowing with dramatic language. Betrayed trust, sabotage, emotional distress. She declared she was deeply hurt and couldn't believe I'd throw years of sisterhood away over a mere cake. And then, at the very bottom, scrolled in her familiar, loopy cursive, it read, P.S. You still owe me for the cake. $200. I accept PayPal now, too. That was the moment. That was the exact moment I knew she hadn't learned a single thing. And that's when I finally decided it was time to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I didn't reply to the letter. Not out of politeness anymore. Not out of shock or disbelief. It was because I was simply finished talking. Emily didn't want resolution. She wanted control. And every single time I had responded, every time I tried to defend myself or explain, it had just given her more ammunition, more room to twist things, to perform her relentless martyrdom for the family audience. But I wasn't the same person I'd been even a few months ago. I had grown utterly tired of keeping the peace at the constant expense of my own sanity. So I moved quietly. I had no intention of dragging this feud into some messy legal battlefield or actually calling a health inspector to raid her kitchen. But I did want one thing more than anything else: distance. Real, clear, undeniable distance. First, I unfollowed her. On every single platform. Instagram, Facebook, even Pinterest. Gone. She noticed. Oh, she always noticed. I knew because not even 2 hours later, I got a text from our cousin Danielle. Well, just saw you and Emily aren't connected anymore. You okay? I simply replied, I'm good. Just keeping boundaries. But that was only step one. Step two came a week later when a mutual friend, Monica, messaged me. She was getting married and asked if I'd be okay if she hired Emily to make her wedding cake. Monica had seen the online drama and was being incredibly respectful, which I truly appreciated. So, I told her the truth. Not rumors, not exaggerations, just cold, hard facts. Emily does beautiful work, no doubt, I said, but I'd be careful. She doesn't have a food license, and she charges clients through Venmo, so there's no real accountability if something goes wrong. Also, if anything happens to the cake, if a guest accidentally knocks it over, or a caterer slices it incorrectly, there's a real chance she'll demand full compensation, just like she did with me, even when it wasn't anyone's fault but her own kids. Monica didn't say much in response, but a few days later, I saw her post. It was a photo of her finalized wedding cake tasting with a completely different baker. I didn't gloat. I didn't screenshot it and send it to anyone. But I won't lie. I slept really, really well that night. Meanwhile, the rest of the family started to drift. Not entirely, not all at once, but slowly, subtly, I noticed the tide shifting. Group chats that used to erupt with sympathy for Emily now went quiet whenever she posted her dramatic stories. People who once jumped to her defense started staying utterly silent. A few even started texting me behind the scenes, sharing their own Emily stories. She did the same thing in my baby shower. One cousin wrote, "Made me this huge diaper cake, then told everyone I owed her $100 for the materials." Another chimed in, "She tried to invoice me for the brunch she hosted last spring, even though she insisted on doing it, and said it was her treat." I thought I was crazy for thinking that was weird. It was like a spell was finally breaking. People were finally realizing that Emily's gifts always came with invisible strings attached. And the moment you didn't perform the exact gratitude script she expected, she turned absolutely vindictive. Still, the final undeniable push came a few weeks later when I hosted a small family get-together. Not a big, formal event, just a casual backyard barbecue. Burgers, lemonade, the usual easy stuff. I invited my parents, my in-laws, a few cousins, but not Emily. I didn't even send a polite, "if you're free" text. And I didn't lie about it either. When Mom called the next day, her voice laced with concern, saying Emily was upset she wasn't invited, I simply said, "I know. That was intentional. But she's family, Rachel." Mom sighed dramatically. "So am I," I replied, my voice steady. "And I've spent 33 years being polite while she's humiliated, manipulated, and guilt-tripped me. I'm not doing that anymore." "But it's just a barbecue," she protested. "No," I cut in gently but firmly. "It's not just anything. It's my home, my space. And I finally realized I get to choose who's allowed in it." Mom didn't have a response to that. Not a real one. She changed the subject after a long, awkward silence and didn't bring it up again. But that very weekend, something truly remarkable happened. Something that told me I'd finally, truly shifted the dynamic. I got a message from Tyler, Emily's son, 10 years old, and for the first time, texting me from his dad's phone. "Hi, Rachel," it read. "I'm sorry we ate the cake. We didn't know it was a special one. I hope Josh had a good birthday. He's cool." It hit me right in the gut, because he got it. That tiny bit of maturity and self-awareness from a 10-year-old was more genuine accountability than his mother had shown in her entire adult life. I texted back immediately. "Thank you, Tyler. That means a lot. Josh did have a good birthday, and he misses you guys. Maybe you can hang out sometime soon." He replied with a happy face emoji and a cute Pikachu gif. And that was it. That was the exact moment I stopped feeling angry and started feeling truly, utterly free. Emily kept her distance after that. Maybe she finally realized she'd pushed too far. Or maybe, without an audience to cheer her on, the drama just didn't feel worth the effort anymore. She still posts pictures of her cakes, still tags them with hashtag #MadeWithLove and hashtag #CustomWorksWelcome, but the tone has shifted. It's quieter now, less smug. And then, weeks later, one final Venmo request landed. One line, "You still owe me for that cake." This time, I replied, "I owe you nothing, but I do hope you learned something." Then I hit block, and I didn't look back, because here's what I've learned. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting out of toxic patterns, out of forced smiles, out of roles you never agree to play. And once you're out, truly out, you realize just how incredibly peaceful life can be without all that noise. My son Josh still talks about that birthday party. He remembers the epic piñata, the crazy water balloons, and the delicious bakery cake with the edible pokeballs. He doesn't remember the fight over the special cake. He just remembers laughing his head off with his cousins and eating way too much icing. And that's how I know I did the right thing. Because that's what birthdays should be about. Not guilt, not invoices, not drama. Just pure, unadulterated joy. I never heard from Emily again after that final message. Not directly, anyway. I blocked her on absolutely everything. Phone, social media, even email. And when family events came up, I made it crystal clear. If she's invited, I'm not coming. It wasn't a threat. It was just a simple fact. I wasn't making ultimatums. I was finally making choices for myself. The shift was uncomfortable at first, for sure. My mom, especially, didn't understand. She kept trying to mediate, insisting Emily was just high-strung and meant well deep down. But eventually, even Mom stopped pushing. She saw that I wasn't budging. She saw that I meant it this time. And I think, on some level, it finally made her reevaluate things too. The next big holiday rolled around. Thanksgiving. My husband and I decided to host it ourselves. It was just a small, intimate gathering. My parents, my in-laws, a few close friends. Emily wasn't on the guest list. And for the first time in years, I didn't spend the entire week before dreading the day. There were no last-minute guilt trips, no sideways comments, no gnawing anxiety about what drama she might stir up. Just incredible food, wonderful company, and actual, genuine peace. Even my mom, despite her initial reluctance, admitted on the drive home that it was the most relaxed Thanksgiving she could remember. "Do you miss her?" she asked me, very carefully. I looked at my son, curled up on the couch in a post-feast haze, still wearing his little paper turkey hat. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to keep everyone happy, walking on eggshells so Emily wouldn't explode or twist things around. I thought about how many birthdays, holidays, and precious conversations I'd allowed her to hijack with her endless drama. "No," I said definitively. "Not even a little." Mom just nodded, and to my absolute surprise, she didn't argue. I think a part of her finally, truly got it. A few months later, I heard through the family grapevine that Emily's baking business had gone completely quiet. Her Instagram hadn't been updated in weeks. Apparently, someone reported her for operating without a food license. It wasn't me. I never filed anything. But someone did. Maybe another client she tried to shake down, or a neighbor who'd finally had enough. She posted one last dramatic story, declaring she was taking a break from toxic people and ungrateful clients, and then her account went dark. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't need to. That wasn't my victory to take. My victory came in smaller, quieter moments. Like when Josh asked me, months later, "Will Aunt Emily be at my next birthday?" And I could calmly, honestly say, "No, buddy, she won't be." He just shrugged and said, "Okay, can we have the same cake as last time? The one with the poke balls?" I smiled. "Yeah, we absolutely can." Because in the end, I didn't need to ruin Emily. I just needed to remove her from my life. And by doing that, I got something infinitely better than revenge. I got my peace back,